The protocol behind almost every AI integration just changed shape. Every blog post this week says the same thing. Here is what breaks. Almost none of them are right. The specification itself says, in plain language, that it contains breaking changes. It also says almost nothing you are running today will notice. Both of those are true. Both of them miss it. Model Context Protocol went from a niche desktop idea to over 10,000 public servers running in production. Monthly SDK downloads passed 97 million. OpenAI integrated it. So did Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. When four companies that agree on nothing adopt one protocol, the protocol stops being a preference. So the revision landing July 28 matters. Not because your setup dies overnight. Because of what the changes quietly reveal about who this protocol now serves. I build on MCP every week. Here is what actually changed, what genuinely breaks, and the failure nobody is fixing because admitting it is embarrassing. Start with the headline. The core goes stateless. That mandatory initialize handshake every client performed before doing anything useful is simply gone from the specification. Before this, a client opened a session and the server tracked it with an MCP session ID header. State lived quietly on the server side. Now every request carries itself. Client identity and protocol version ride inside a meta object in each envelope. Nothing depends on a conversation that happened earlier. That sounds academic until you have deployed one. Sticky sessions meant pinning each client to one server instance, or running a shared session store. Both are operational tacks. Stateless means any instance answers any request. A plain round-robin load balancer suddenly works, with no special configuration at all. They went further. Method names and resource names now ride in MCP method and MCP name headers, so gateways route traffic without parsing request bodies. Capability discovery moved too. Instead of that chatty opening handshake, a client calls server/discover on demand, only when it actually needs to know. Responses gained TTL and cache scope fields. Clients can finally cache what a server tells them, predictably, instead of guessing how stale their picture is. Statefulness did not vanish. It became explicit. A tool returns a handle, a basket ID, or a task ID, and you pass it back deliberately. That matters more than it sounds. Hidden server state is invisible to the model. An explicit handle is something the model can see, reason about, and pass. Then the deprecations. Routes, sampling, and logging are all marked for eventual removal. The stated reason is unusually blunt for a specification document to admit. Low adoption relative to implementation complexity. Routes had vague semantics. Sampling was hard to build safely. Logging duplicated what Spec and OpenTelemetry already did. Dynamic client registration and the old HTTP plus server-sent events transport are going too. Explicit OAuth registration and streamable HTTP replace them. New capabilities arrived alongside. Tasks standardize async work. A server returns a task ID, the client polls, and the handle survives a dropped connection. Multi-round-trip requests let a tool ask the user something mid-execution, without holding a persistent stream open the entire time it waits. MCP apps let a server define interactive HTML that renders inside a sandboxed iframe in the chat, talking back over JSON RPC through post message. Authorization got serious. OAuth 2.1 and OpenID Connect become mandatory. Issuer validation per RFC 9207. Credential binding tightened throughout. And enterprise-managed authorization lets central IT provision which servers people can reach through the identity provider the company already runs. Read that again, because here is the turn. Every single change I just described solves an operations problem. Load balancers, gateways, identity providers, procurement, central IT departments. None of it solves a building problem. And the same release notes that admit breaking changes also say these deprecations are annotation only. That the methods and capability flags keep working in every specification version published within a year of this one. And that the formal deprecation policy sets a 12-month minimum window. Earliest removal is July 28, 2027. So the emergency framing is manufactured. Breaking change gets clicks. Gradual maturation does not get clicks. What actually happened is a change of identity. MCP stopped being a clever desktop protocol and became infrastructure, designed for people who file procurement tickets. Which brings me to the part no revision touches. I spent this week building on 3 different MCP servers. Here is what actually cost me time. One server shipped documentation describing a polling tool that does not exist in its own API. I wrote the call. The call was pure fiction. Another promised a persistent sandbox in its docs, then silently discarded every file about 10 seconds after each call returned. Same page. Both claims. A third could not bind credentials to its own request nodes at all, and sat completely dead in production for over a month before anyone noticed. None of that is a protocol failure. It is servers lying about their own interface. Stateless routing is a real problem. It is not that one. The Spec authors fixed the plumbing, carefully, with a 12-month deprecation window. The furniture is still nailed to the ceiling. Check your servers, not the Spec.